What's poppin', everyone? So in this video, I'm going to tell you why jQuery and PHP is for caveman/cavewoman developers. All right, the reason why I'm making this video is because if we look at Stack Overflow's survey they did for last year, 2019, they had jQuery as the highest used framework, web framework that is. There's other frameworks, but the highest used web framework. And that is over other popular ones like Angular, React, Vue, and then server-side frameworks as well, like Express and Spring. And then, so jQuery is top here. And then if we look at the, like the programming languages, PHP is really high up there as used as well. So this indicates to me that people are using these really old technologies, jQuery and PHP. Also, according to Wikipedia here, jQuery is used by 73% of the 10 million most popular websites, which is very crazy. Of course, that doesn't mean that could also mean that the least popular websites are using other stuff, maybe because they're newer. But also saying has 3 to 4 more times more uses than any other JavaScript library. So jQuery is definitely popular. And it's so old. Look at this, 2006 is when it was released. So this is back when JavaScript wasn't really, I guess, as used as it is now. Like, people weren't using as much JavaScript for a variety of different reasons. It just it wasn't as powerful back then. So most people are going to be using jQuery for DOM traversal, so the HTML tree DOM traversal. And that isn't really needed that's not really needed anymore. And of course, there's other reasons to use jQuery other than that. But this is the main reason. It's to traverse the DOM. And you don't need to traverse the DOM if you're using one of the other single-page application or SPA frameworks/libraries. Like Angular, which is a framework. React is technically a library. And then there's Vue as well. So the crazy amount of usage from jQuery is because most of the developers are, of course, older. And the older developers are, of course, going to be using what they're going to be used to, which is, of course, jQuery, since it's so old. And another reason why it's used a lot is because it's open source. So they can change the jQuery code if they need to do that, or need some kind of feature that will use a changed jQuery code. And jQuery has not aged well. As well, because oftentimes it doesn't work too well with these new frameworks that are oftentimes easier to use and faster in some cases. So such as React, it does not work very well with React. And I also want to talk about PHP and its oldness. These caveman developers are using these old technologies, writing on the walls with their ink or animal blood. This is what PHP and jQuery are. It's 25 years old. This is probably the age of a modern, right out of college developer, maybe a couple of years after that. But, so people have been using PHP since before these new, right out of college junior developers were born, basically. And that's pretty silly. And people are expecting these people to know PHP. That's why they're so junior, but in reality, they should be learning some of the new technologies. And of course, you can say, yeah, well, it was updated, and of course, jQuery was updated as well. But it was updated March 19th, 2020, so that's last month, because this is April 2020. All right, so since PHP is so caveman, I have to explain what it is, because some people don't even know what it is, since it's so old, 25 years old. Okay, so PHP is used it's a scripting language, so it's not only used for this, but people mainly use it for server-side rendering. So what that basically means is you're going to create HTML on the server somewhere, could be off in the cloud, could just be anywhere in your mom's basement or something like that. But they're going to generate the HTML, and then they're going to send it to the client or the user. And of course, this might take a long time because you have to generate HTML for everyone instead of just what is done normally, which is, or in other scenarios where HTML is statically there. So that's static HTML. So this could be like HTML stored in an AWS S3 bucket. And that is faster because you don't have to generate it for each person. You have it statically there. And another thing about the server-side rendering is it requires a server dedicated to this PHP to be running constantly. And of course, you can see the performance problems behind this. If a server is running constantly, then of course you're going to need multiple servers, because if one goes down, then your whole system breaks. While you can use other methods nowadays to get rid of that issue. So another issue with server-side rendering with PHP is that it can get very expensive. Because if you think of user activity, people aren't going to be using the website like at the same amount each day. No, they're going to use it like once they get home from work, 5:30 p.m., they're going to go to their Facebook feed and they're going to look at Aunt Susie's pictures, because that's all they do. And then they just leave Facebook and never use it again for the day. So it's only there's going to be big spikes in usage. So having a server running all day, every day, at that max capacity that is needed for everyone to log in at 5:30 to go into their Facebook feed is kind of a waste, because the rest of the day it's going to be running and it's not going to need that much capacity, or they're not going to need this many servers running for that 5:30 peak. So it can be used for other purposes. So when it's reached that peak usage, there's of course a lot of wasted compute power and a lot of wasted money. So this is why people moved away from PHP and they moved to more cost-friendly frameworks like React and Angular, because they put most of the work on the client to render the page instead of the server. So this new method is called statically hosting, where you host HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to users. And of course, because they're all in the bucket, and the client will just render it all, so the server doesn't have to really worry about stuff like that. So in that case, the server can worry more about like going into the database or sending requests to other servers and stuff like that. The server doesn't have to worry about all the rendering of HTML anymore. And now I want to talk about the other side of the coin, which is these new frameworks and libraries. So all of these are newer than PHP and jQuery. So that means they're going to be using newer technology and, I guess, newer ways of solving these kind of problems. So they're single-page applications. So that means that each time you go to a new page with like PHP, you're going to have to create the whole new page from scratch. While these newer libraries and frameworks, these new web technologies, should I say, they don't create the whole page from scratch. They use some components of it. So React 2013, it's like 7 years ago, Angular 2016, 4 years ago, Vue not used as much as the other ones, but still, I guess, updated. All these are updated, 2014, so 6 years ago. Oh, this isn't the last time they're updated. This is like when they were created. They're all updated very recently, because they're maintained by, or some of them are maintained by large corporations or companies. So think of React maintained by Facebook. Angular was made at first by a team at Google, and it's open source as well, but it is development is led by Google as well. While Vue is open source in general, and it's not maintained by a large company, but it still is open source. And these new frameworks allow for a better user experience, since that the user doesn't have to wait for the whole new page to render each time. Or I mean, it does render, but it's not server rendered. It's rendered in the client. So it doesn't have to wait as long. So the application just flows more easily. And that's what really matters in web development these days, the flow of the application. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like the video if you want. Peace.